The idea of getting every achievement in Minecraft has always kind of been something I've been interested in, but doing it in a recent version seems kind of absurd, especially for the length of a single video of mine. I'm sure I'll do it eventually, but for now it seems a lot more reasonable to do it in an older version of the game. What better place to start than the very first release version then? There is one exception: the achievement Sniper Duel isn't actually possible on this version. The achievement was bugged for quite a while. I'll still fulfill the requirement for it, but it won't actually proc the achievement itself. Also, if you're hankering for more Minecraft content after this video, I have another about beating Minecraft using only tools the Chosen Undead from Dark Souls has access to on my main channel, and my inspiration for this video was a partner deciding she wanted to start making Minecraft videos, which should go up on the same day as my two. Anyway, 1.0 doesn't have much variation in its terrain generation or very large biomes, so the spawn we get isn't too important. We did happen to spawn near one of each biome and in the middle of a forest, which is genuinely really nice for certain achievements. After a quick glance through our goals, the first one we have to get is taking inventory, followed by getting wood and benchmarking. You literally can't get any other achievements before getting those three. Also, apparently the leaves already decayed at this point. I had no idea. It is very helpful though. I took out some of the sheep that spawned nearby to get some wool for a bed, and grabbed a bit of sugarcane for some enchanting a bit later on. The next couple achievements are just making some tools: a hoe for time to farm, a wood pickaxe for time to mine, then a stone pickaxe for getting an upgrade. Hot topic, crafting a furnace, follows shortly after since it's much easier to get stone with a stone pickaxe. These first few achievements are really flying by, but I promise things are going to start slowing down a bit once we get to the more substantial ones. I hopped down into a hole to get some coal for cooking some of the beef I picked up around the place. You can't actually breed animals in this version, so animals spawn in huge herds, and I've just been killing cows as I've seen them, since steak is the best food in the game. Time to strike is achieved by crafting a wooden sword, which gives us the ability to unlock Cow Tipper, which is just killing another cow. At this point, I figured I'd need leather for books, but it turns out the book recipe doesn't require leather at all. I didn't make leather armor for a bit for that reason, but it probably wouldn't have been a bad idea to. A skeleton spontaneously attacked me from a cave, getting me the perfect opportunity for Monster Hunter, simply slaying a monster, which is genuinely funny with old Minecraft combat. If you can't tell, I'm a Java player through and through. I also decided to grab some seeds to plant for bread and cake, which are needed for 2 more achievements. Farmland breaks from walking over it. Right, I'll keep that in mind. I finally crafted a chest to throw my miscellaneous odds and ends into before doing some more exploring, specifically into the cave I got Monster Hunter in earlier. As a side note, killing creepers is much harder when you only have double tap sprint and not a dedicated sprint button. The cave turned out to be a short tunnel, which led to some more cows to kill, and eventually a proper cave where I finally started getting iron. Iron seems to be a bit more rare, but come in larger chunks than more recent versions, which is an interesting difference. Also, I definitely got jump scared by a skeleton at one point, which I wasn't expecting. Old Minecraft does genuinely have an air of unease about it, which I really was not expecting. There were so many instances where I thought I saw something move out of the corner of my eye, or a monster showed up out of nowhere and scared me, or a cave sound played out in the open, and a lot of them were kind of spooky. At this point, I'm old enough to recognize that most of them probably aren't Herobrine, but modern Minecraft doesn't have the same atmosphere at all. I don't think modern Minecraft lacks an atmosphere per se, or even has a worse one. It's just distinctly different. There are a lot of little quality of life features that this version lacks that are much more noticeable than I expected. For instance, you can shift-click into inventories, but not things like furnaces or crafting tables. You also have to manually place every single item you want to craft, or split stacks in half. You can't click and drag to evenly deposit items. After a bit of waiting for my iron to smelt, we get acquire hardware and make an iron pickaxe, as well as a sword and a couple pieces of armor. A skeleton shows up in the water, dropping a bone so I can see how absurdly powerful bone meal used to be. I didn't realize it actually made the wheat grow fully. I thought there was another stage, but I could technically make bread now, even if I didn't end up doing that for a bit. It turns out that monsters are pretty ineffective in this version. Don't get me wrong, if you don't have a sword or armor, they can be intimidating, but I also entered this cave and most of them fell down a hole and never even ended up attacking me, so Anyway, the search for iron ended up being pretty fruitful, and I got some string, which I'm going to need a bit of over time. I also got jump scared by a spider dropping onto my head. Honestly, it's extremely fortunate that Minecraft spiders don't actually trigger my arachnophobia, because that definitely would have given me a panic attack. Another change I always thought was weird was gravel not being updated during world generation, meaning they intentionally made gravel float as long as it's never updated. I always thought it felt I don't know, weird that something that always falls was intentionally made to float in some circumstances. But seeing these caves have random piles of gravel is really changing my mind on that. It definitely looks a lot better nowadays, even if the mechanics are a bit different from what you'd expect. At this point, I had plenty of iron for a full set of armor and some extra tools, though at some point I will need about 6 stacks of iron for a single achievement. I used some of the string I found to make a fishing pole, once I remembered the shape, caught a fish, and cooked it for the delicious fish achievement. Also, it turns out that you can't place anything on interactable blocks by crouching like you can now, so I had to build a wall behind my furnace to place one on top. That's already 12 of 27 achievements and only half an hour of gameplay. We're on a roll. For reference, I have about 5 hours of footage, so things will probably slow down. I also made a bucket with some of the iron I had, since a bucket of water is one of the most useful tools in the game, even if you can't actually water bucket clutch in this version, which I couldn't do anyway since I'm bad at timing it. Anyway, I did some exploring around and ended up finding a village, where I learned that not even the most basic villager trading system has been implemented yet, so I just stole their books and such. At least there's a blacksmith. Oh, there are no chests here yet. Okay, well, at least I got some books. I got a few milk buckets for the cake later, and also happened to find a massive herd of cows, so I don't think food will be an issue for the rest of the game. I also found several chickens, which simply meant waiting for one of them to drop an egg. It took a few minutes, but I did eventually get one. This is where I learned breeding isn't in this version, since I tried to lure the chickens together to make the waiting faster, but instead I just focused on one and followed it around for a bit. I also witnessed a cow trying to swim in lava, which was an interesting sight. After getting the egg, I got some feathers from the chickens around so I could craft some arrows for the dragon fight later and headed back home. I grabbed the wheat and sugarcane I needed and made a cake for the lie achievement. I also took this opportunity to get a bit more wheat for the bread achievement, since it's so much easier and I already had a couple of bones. Most of the rest of the achievements require getting the diamonds achievement first, so that seems to be our next main goal. Caving does yield diamonds sometimes, but it's not nearly as lucrative as it is in more recent versions. Plus, it's far less torch efficient, so I decided to do some strip mining instead, right at Y11 just like the good old days. If you don't know, this coordinate puts you just above lava pools, so it's highly unlikely that you'll end up drowning in lava while just mining straight forward. Diamonds are technically more likely lower down, but this is the safest place to do it. As tedious as it can be, strip mining in these older versions is incredibly relaxing. It's just relaxing and turning your brain off while occasionally getting rewarded with resources. It wasn't too long until I found a few diamonds, but I did keep going until I ran out of pickaxes. I made sure to grab some lapis, gold, and redstone as I went. The lapis won't be useful at all, but the redstone and gold are pretty much required for an achievement later. After only about 20 minutes of mining and a bit of caving, I had went through 3 iron pickaxes, had 12 gold, 57 redstone, and 4 diamonds. I do need 1 more diamond for enchanting, but this is at least enough to get some obsidian for the table and to access the nether. I forgot you couldn't put chests next to each other yet, so my chests are a bit scattered, but I also have ADHD, so this is just how I make things most of the time anyway. After a bit of inventory management, I restocked on torches and made some more pickaxes, including a diamond one, before heading right back down and mining in the opposite direction. I eventually ran into a ravine with a bunch of natural obsidian, which was perfect to gather real quick. After closing off the water streams so I wouldn't get pushed into the lava, a nice little trick that Rhea taught me, the partner I talked about earlier who's making her own videos, is placing water down at your feet while mining out the obsidian, so if there's lava under it, it won't get burnt before the lava gets turned into obsidian itself. Mining obsidian with an unenchanted diamond pickaxe is never fun, but one thing that genuinely made it feel less terrible is the idea that it breaks so slowly because it's brittle. You're going slow so you don't break it, not because it's hard. I don't know why, that just made the slow pace feel better to me. I heard a slime slapping around while I was in the ravine, but it wasn't in the ravine itself. I've used sounds a couple times to find caves adjacent to where I was strip mining, but this is the first notable one. The 3D audio in this version is extremely primitive and genuinely makes it really difficult to know where anything is actually at in relation to you. It gets louder in one ear and quieter in the other, but the difference is way too intense, and it's kind of only possible to tell the general direction something is in, not if it's above or below you. Admittedly, it's not that big of a deal, it's just very obvious after playing modern Minecraft. I did find the slime and get some slime balls, but never used them for anything. There were also some diamonds nearby, which was fortunate. This 30-ish minute mining trip ended up being the luckiest in the entire playthrough, and I ended up with 28 more diamonds on top of 22 more gold. Since I had the obsidian, I decided to make an enchantment table and nether portal real quick. I harvested some sugarcane for books so I could get enough bookshelves, only to actually learn the old recipe for books. Crafting a bookshelf gets us librarian, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do any proper enchanting yet. I'm only level 10. I didn't truly realize how far away I was yet. I also didn't know I need so many more bookshelves, but that didn't end up being that big of a deal. Level 50 enchantments were a crime though, if small among the other things that Notch committed. I geared up a bit for my trip into
the Nether.
What the hell was that? Anyway, I got a new sword, a couple stacks of cobblestone, a couple iron pickaxes, and only a bit of my food just in case I died. Oh, and of course,
flint and steel.
What the? We need to go deeper here, if it wasn't obvious. The old Nether is still so weird to me. Granted, I think the atmosphere of being an analog to hell was a lot stronger when the Nether was only wastes and lava, but gameplay-wise, the new Nether is just so much more fun. This Nether is just kind of boring most of the time. I found a couple magma cubes while exploring for a fortress, hoping for some cream to make a potion of fire resistance, but never actually got any. I also came across a ghast taking a shower, but it was a bit too far off to hope for a turn to Cinder for now. I did find another fortress pretty close to my portal, luckily, and made my way up to look for some nether wart and blazes. The wart was pretty hard to miss, and it made a stone breaking noise while picking it up. Old fortresses were so dark, it makes them more annoying to explore than anything. They didn't even have chests at this point either. Eventually, though, I did find a couple blaze spawners and started fighting them. They're honestly pretty non-threatening in this version. The fire doesn't last very long, they don't do very much damage, and they're terrible at aiming, just like skeletons, on top of dying incredibly quickly since you can spam attacks instead of having to time them. I got into fire from my very first blaze, and a ghast started attacking me, giving me the perfect opportunity to get returned to center. I took my first and only death in this entire playthrough to pure greed here, trying to attack a blaze floating over the edge, and falling a bit too far. Luckily, only a little bit of my stuff burned, just the food and some blocks, so it was pretty easy to recover. The blaze rods I had gotten so far also burned, but I only had a few and was going to need to get a bunch more anyway. You also get all your experience back in this version, so I didn't even lose any levels. Another couple little things about this version. Pigmen, not Ziglins yet, never ever stop trying to attack you after hitting just one, even if they kill you. Luckily, I was careful enough to avoid that fate. Ghasts also swish a bit when they shoot at you, which is really cute, and I wish it was still in modern Minecraft. Saturation also doesn't really work the same in this version. I'm not exactly sure how it does work, but it's definitely different. It took a lot longer to lose any hunger than it would in modern Minecraft, making it really hard to try and heal while fighting blazes. I was satisfied after getting 9 rods, got a bit more netherwort, and headed home. Never to return to the down below, since there's literally just no reason to. If anything, I think that makes the modern nether better than this version, just because there's so much more to do there, and a lot more cool building blocks and such. I made a brewing stand and made some glass bottles to make a few awkward potions for local brewery. Apparently, you don't need to fuel the brewing stand in this version, and you don't need to make a useful potion for the achievement. Now, at this point, it's kind of just annoying and tedious achievements left. We need to beat the Ender Dragon, which requires getting a bunch of Ender Pearls, and the best way to do that in this version is just running around at night, hoping you'll find Endermen and hoping they drop pearls. We need to shoot a skeleton from 50 blocks, which is actually pretty easy, but it also just kind of requires running around trying to find a skeleton, then trapping it and hitting it from really far away. There's Overkill, where I just need to get lucky enough to get an enchantment that lets me deal 8 hearts of damage to something, but I need a bunch of levels for that, and the only feasible way to get those levels in a reasonable amount of time is by defeating the Ender Dragon. There's One Pig's Fly, which is making a pig die to fall damage while riding it, and the only way to ride a pig is with a saddle. And the only way to get a saddle in this version is stumbling upon a dungeon down underground, which is pretty rare. Finally, on a rail requires riding a minecart over 1,000 blocks from where you started in the cardinal direction, which takes almost 6 stacks of iron for the rails alone. The next couple hours of gameplay were just running around at night killing every enderman I saw. This really made me realize how not dangerous mobs were in this version. I killed dozens upon dozens of mobs, learning skeletons simply aren't good at aiming, and spamming works perfectly for most other mobs. I was worried endermen would be dangerous, but it's really easy to track their teleportation, and they really don't do enough damage to matter when you're wearing iron armor. It can be tedious to kill them while they're constantly teleporting around, but it's really not that big of a deal. Each morning, I'd take a short trip into a cave to grab some iron for later, maybe walk around killing mobs for food or feathers, or get some flint for arrow crafting later, just waiting for a night to come back so I could get more ender pearls. This process also got me quite a few arrows from skeletons, which is fortunate. I want at least 2 stacks for the Ender Dragon fight. The process wasn't necessarily boring, but it was definitely tedious and took way longer than I wanted it to. I did end up taming a wolf at one point with all the bones I was collecting, but I didn't know if I could heal it since it wouldn't eat rotten flesh, more bones, or even the steak that I had, so I kind of just left it back at my base for the rest of the game. I also found a spider jockey, which was the only one I saw for this whole playthrough. Also, in post, I did find one while taking the screenshot for the thumbnail, which was interesting. A lot of this process was unrecorded since I didn't want to just have hours of footage of doing the exact same thing, but I did find a dungeon and a few saddles. I dug a trench with a hole at one end that I could push a pig into with some water while I was riding it, since there's no carrot on a stick in this version, or carrots at all. It took a few tries to get the hole deep enough, figure out the right size of the trench, and to not hit the pig while it was jumping to give it just enough of a damage boost to escape the hole, but I had a few extra saddles, luckily. Actually, the pigs don't drop the saddles when they die, and there's no way to get the saddle off the pig once it's on. I did eventually get one pig's fly and went back to farming endermen and such. By the time I finally had 15 pearls, probably a couple more than I needed, but not unwelcome, I enchanted a diamond sword with a level 30 enchantment, getting sharpness 3, looting 2, and knockback 2. Looting and knockback is an unfortunate combination, and it's not nearly enough to get overkill, but it's better than nothing, and I figured it would be usable during the dragon fight. The dragon doesn't purge in this version, so it was kinda useless, and I probably should have enchanted the bow instead, but I realized that a bit too late. Either way, I had over 3 stacks of arrows, 15 pearls, and full iron gear. Though I had enough for full diamonds, I didn't want to waste it on just the dragon. Granted, there wasn't really any other reason to use it later, but I didn't know that at the time, and full iron was more than enough. I even made an extra bow just in case. The stronghold ended up being pretty close to spawn, and was surprisingly easy to find, though I did make a boat at one point, learning just how truly awful they were in this version. They're slow, break incredibly easily, and swimming is even worse. Luckily, the journey left me with more than enough ice to fill up the portal. Also, fun fact, the only way to get apples in this version was from the stronghold, so I found a couple of those, placed the bed I brought with me, and headed into the end to finally fight the dragon. The spawn was off the island, but I was insightful enough to bring some extra blocks with me. The towers with the crystals actually spawn randomly around the island in this version, which I think is a lot more interesting. It wouldn't really make sense to do that in modern versions, since the fountain doesn't spawn when you kill the dragon, and being in the middle makes sense, but this is still cool. I brought a bunch of arrows because I suck at aiming, but I did get one really good shot that took out 2 crystals at once from pretty far away. Otherwise, honestly, the fight is pretty underwhelming. The dragon doesn't have dragon breath, and she doesn't perch, so it's literally just shooting at her and avoiding her dive every so often. I didn't even bring a pumpkin because it's really easy to just not look at the enderman. I've never really understood why people have issues with that. Anyway, Jean goes down pretty anticlimactically, even without the dramatic death sound. We steal the egg, and we have enough XP to work on some of our last achievements. I then spent approximately 3 hours cycling through enchantments to even just see a level 50 enchantment. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but it certainly felt like it. I took the first level 50 I saw, since there's no way to tell what you're going to get anyway, and I got knockback 2. That's it, only knockback 2. I only had 2 chances to get a decent enchantment, and the first one was wasted on knockback 2. Full disclosure, I actually backed up my world at this point, and just restored it every time I didn't get a decent enchantment. After another couple attempts, I got Bane of Arthropods 5, which, while disappointing, is enough to get overkill as long as I crit a spider, so I went and did that and finally got overkill. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but critical attacks happen when you attack while falling, just like modern Minecraft, and give you a bit more damage, making overkill possible in this case. I tried a couple methods to get Sniper Duel. First, I built up 50 blocks from a skeleton, and it didn't give me the achievement, so I thought it needed to be 50 blocks horizontally. I trapped a skeleton underground in a dirt cage, covered it so it didn't burn in the sun, and walked over 50 blocks away, and it simply didn't give me the achievement. I looked it up and learned it wasn't possible at all in this version. Well, at least it feels like I got it, I guess. The intrinsic reward is what really matters. The final achievement to get is on a rail, which I did a lot of mining for. It really wasn't that awful, but it was definitely the most tedious achievement by far, which is saying a lot. I just grabbed my rails, picked a direction, and placed a powered rail with a redstone torch every 20-ish blocks. It only took about 15 minutes to place all the rails, which was surprisingly fast, and the distance between the powered rails happened to be perfect. Well, that's all of them. I have successfully 100%ed Minecraft 1.0. It was fun, I guess, just nothing particularly remarkable. If you already like Minecraft and have nostalgia for older versions or just want to see what it was like, I do recommend this, but I do think it'll be a bit more to rave about once I do it in modern Minecraft. Once again, if you're wanting more Minecraft, I have a video up on my main channel of beating the game while only using the tools that are available in Dark Souls, and a partner of mine is making her own content on this game, both of which will be linked on the end screen and in the description, as well as in the cards. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, I love you all, and I don't know how to end this.